Get started in a couple minutes, but I'll do a sound check, make sure people can hear me okay. Great, thanks for that feedback. And you probably have heard me say this, but it's nice, we're creating as best we can this virtual community. And I spotlight myself because I do record the Tuesday nights now, and audio, like if we have discussion later, that will get recorded, but only my video feed will get recorded to our YouTube channel. So these talks are always available there to listen to at any time. Um, but it's nice to take this time before we get started formally, just to realize that we're here with other people, and feel free to go through the small rectangles on your screen and recognize those you recognize, and or put something into the chat, or whatever we can do to sense this community we get to practice with. We're not alone. And as you know, those of you who've been practicing for a while, and in a lot of ways, being interested in being present is against the stream of our culture in so many different ways, which, the general vibe of our culture has a lot to do with distractedness, getting absorbed in this and that, and feeding on intensity, feeding on our liking and not liking. And so what we do, trying to learn from the teachings of the Buddha and put them into practice, is really against the stream. So it's good to know we're not alone, that we have a community to practice with, and not just this present community showing up here on Tuesday night, but the great lineage of people through so many different cultures, so many different generations for these many centuries, since the time of the Buddha 2,600 years ago. One generation after another, passing these teachings along and doing the best to practice. And it's really incredible that still quite alive, quite pragmatic and functional, these teachings, even though they were articulated so long ago. So thanks again, everyone, for showing up and being here together. And we can begin when you're ready, just listening to the body, opening, realizing the simple truth. There is this body, this sitting body, this breathing body. And we're not rushing it. We don't have to immediately close our eyes or come to stillness in our sitting posture, but just that, like a snow globe that's been shook up, naturally settles. We just attune to the natural settling process. We're not making the body and the mind settle, but we're just doing our best not to shake it up. And settling then just happens naturally. And we're shifting into the receptive mode, or trusting that natural capacity of our heart, mind to be receptive. Less about doing our practice and more about trusting or recognizing that sitting is being known, breathing is being known, the mood or attitude of the mind is being felt and known. The way it is, this activity of the body and the mind is being known. And just exploring, is it safe enough to trust and relax and allow the conditions, the activity of the body and the mind to express themselves as they will. Sounds and sights and sensations being known, and thoughts and feelings being known. Nothing left out. And a significant part of the practice, like I said earlier, is less about doing something or less about focusing one's attention or directing one's attention, and more about trusting the capacity, this receptive, open quality of knowing or sensing, feeling the activity of the body and mind as it actually is now in the moment. Always changing, of course, evolving, unfolding. And even all the little and bigger ways the mind, because of habits, might resist or might want to control or direct the show, then even that activity of resistance and controlling, that also can be known and felt as something coming and going. Just another expression of bodily and mental activity. So we recognize wholesome ways of relating in the same way that we recognize and accept unwholesome ways of relating, reactivity. It's just another thing to be known, to be felt, in a sense that wisdom understands, oh, it's like this now. It feels like this now. Can this be okay? Yeah, well, because sometimes it is like this, like right now. Doesn't make sense, doesn't require a reaction, because it's already like this. It's already being felt and known like this. And very soon it will evolve, it will change and become the next moment, and then the next. So in a way, we're cultivating this wise and kind ease with the flow, with the unfolding of bodily and mental activity. It's as if wisdom is learning how to be right in the middle, wide open, sensitive, but also not resistant, not causing any friction, just letting the activities of the body and the mind come and go. Wholesome and unwholesome, pleasant and unpleasant, subtle and gross, the whole range of human experience has permission. And our job as a practitioner is to, in a sense, just be empty right in the middle, sensitive, but not attached, not clinging, not needing to be in control or even needing to figure things out. Sensitivity and letting go. That's really our refuge. Sensitivity and letting things be. Even when there's explosive reactions or tight squeeze. Oh, okay, it's like this. Sensitive and letting that be what it is. Knowing that things come and go, they keep unfolding, it's not fixed. So let's continue in silence now for the rest of the sitting time. So now for the last few minutes, interested in this middle way that we talked about last week, this considered the Buddha's first teaching, this middle way where the mind isn't indulging or trying to feed or get something from experience, but also not neglecting, not ignoring, not turning away or being distracted. So another way of saying this is this coming together of sensitivity or intimacy and non-attachment. Not clinging, not controlling, but on the other hand very present, intimate, sensitive with what's coming and going. Relaxed and alertness together. Deeply, deeply aligning, allowing, accepting, letting things be the way they are, not in conflict in any way, not needing to become somebody or get rid of something or hold on. It makes sense that if this heart really desires, in a wholesome sense, freedom, then we practice being free with the conditions, with the way it is. And we learn very quickly that we can't force freedom, we can't pretend freedom. Neither of those are satisfactory at all. It's more of a recognition or a realization really, as the Buddha might suggest, this reality of non-clinging, or this way of being, this way of relating that is non-clinging, not grasping, non-fear, non-distraction, releasing, releasing, releasing. Take a moment and adjust, stretch a little if you'd like. Once again, connect with the community we're here with, appreciating that we have folks who are also interested. As I mentioned at the very beginning, for those who joined in late, that what we're doing is really against the stream in so many different ways, subtle and not so subtle. And one of the things probably all of us have figured out in life generally, it's kind of a basic instinct, or not instinct, but insight, is that change happens most easily when we're aligning with others who are, who share that intention, that resolve for change. If we hang out with people who are into distraction and reactivity, well, it's going to be very easy to be a distracted and reactive person. I think I shared with the group, if you were here a couple weeks back, this passage that has been meaningful for me, and this relates some to this last couple chapters in Ajahn Chah's wonderful collection, this collected teachings of Ajahn Chah. And by the way, I'll always put the links in the chat there. So if you want to capture that document, which has the link to this book, you can get the digital book for free online. And actually the monastery in Abhayagiri in California will send you a paperback or a paper book of it too. It's quite big, assuming they have some printed copies still available to send out to folks. But people have donated money to get these books printed and offered freely, so they are available if you're interested. But these last few chapters have been on the Four Noble Truths and just this predicament of our human lives, of when we observe the mind, we see how often, in so many different ways, being pushed around by our liking, our habits of liking this and that, and our habits of disliking. And it's really, in a way, the animating part of our life. Gil Fronsdal, a wonderful West Coast teacher, said once, or wrote once, that greed and aversion are the caffeine of the soul. And that's really what this liking and disliking is about. There's this sense of me, and the me that's navigating my life is really attuned to what I like and what I don't like. And there's this sort of promise woven in with that liking and not liking, that if I really get my act together and get what I like and get rid of what I don't like, I'm going to be happy, in some sort of meaningful or lasting way. And we don't bother to really check it out. We just are so busy, feeling the tension of liking and not liking, the activation of it, and the pursuit of it, getting rid of what we don't like and trying to get what we do like, that we never really take in the deeper, wider, full picture that it doesn't really deliver peace or freedom or the happiness that it seems to be promising us. In any case, the passage is, one has no doubt, this is from the Buddha, one has no doubt that what arises is only suffering, and what ceases is only suffering ceasing. One's knowledge about this is independent of others. It is in this way, Kachana, he's talking to a student of his, it is in this way, Kachana, that there is wise view. So this is the Buddha's explaining, defining what it means to be relating in a wise way to experience. So when whatever we're relating to, something really pleasant like hanging out with our dog or cat or friend, or something difficult, or any experience whatsoever, just what's of real interest, actually, when we cultivate the sensitivity, this you could say a spiritual sensitivity, what's actually interesting to our heart is the truth or the experience of clinging, getting tight, and the absence of that experience of clinging and being tight, stress and the release of stress. Not so much that we're looking at a beautiful sunset, but what's more relevant than that experience is the heart tight about it. Oh, I like the sunset, may it always last, don't go away. I need to move here, and I need it permanently at 7:40. But of course it changes every day, so it's getting earlier and earlier or later and later depending on the season, right? And then the damn clouds block the sun, and it's like, it's a fragile thing. So we want to notice every experience, whether we're eating dinner or frustrated in traffic. Oh, what's really relevant here is the squeeze in my heart. And in those other moments where there is a release, where the mind isn't so entangled, then we want to notice that relative absence of entanglement of stress. So just imagine, this is really goes right to the heart of how the Buddha suggests we reorient our life. Like I said, this is against the stream. This is not the way we're conditioned by culture to be relating to life. Oh, look at, things are tight. Oh, look at, things are released. We don't look that way. We don't observe our life, our experience that way. We get enticed and seduced. Like, so when something's exciting to us, like I see a house in near Lake Superior that I want, or a cabin or whatever, I don't notice the tension, like, oh, I need to have this, or, oh, I hope this is as good as it looks, or, oh, how am I going to afford this, or, I don't notice all the various ways my heart gets squeezed. What I notice is the juiciness of the possibility, right? And so the shift is to go, it's not to say we shouldn't, buy a house near Lake Superior or not, or whatever, gets your engine going. The point is the reframing of every moment in terms of suffering and the cessation of suffering. Because as it turns out, at least according to the Buddha, and then maybe it turns out to be true in our own heart, in our own mind and life, that what's actually always forever relevant, more than anything else, is the heart tight? Is the heart released? With whatever's going on. We could be lying in bed, getting ready to fall asleep, but what's relevant is there some worry about, like, am I going to have a good night's sleep? Or will my restless legs keep me up again? Or should I open the window because it's a little warm, or shut the window because it's a little cool, or one thing or another that the mind might be getting tight around, even if it's very subtle holding. Or is the heart released, unafraid, not bound up, not entangled? Then we notice, then wisdom notices that. So this is not about controlling, like, oh my God, I'm tight, I got to get rid of it, or oh my God, I'm not tight, I got to hold on to it. No, it's simply observing the reality of suffering and the release of suffering. And just like reconfigure, like even the last few hours or the last few minutes, or even right now, as we're listening, or as you're listening to the talk, like, can that be my frame? Like, is the heart in any subtle or not so subtle way bound up now? Well, that's, even as I listen to Mark and try to digest what he's saying, can I also be aware of, like, oh yeah, I want to hold on to this, or whatever way the heart might be bound up. This is stupid. Why did I come? Well, they notice if I leave. But just to observe whatever way the mind is clinging, attached, holding, reacting, identified, in a way that causes that squeeze. Or recognizing the relative or profound absence of any squeeze, tightness, holding, identification, identified with wanting or not wanting. Like a free fall. That's what peace, the absence of clinging, right? It's like, first of all, we need a lot of humility around that experience. It's really an insight, the absence of the heart clinging, the heart that's free of grasping, free of attachment, free of identification. And it's so much of what we take to be me, I, me, mine, just kind of in an ordinary sense, is the experience of grasping, surprisingly. Like, oh yeah, I'm tight, this is me. I recognize me, I'm tight, there's tightness here, I'm bound up. Oh yeah, this is very familiar. This must be me. Okay, I feel safe because it's me. But the me we recognize is the me that is bound, tight, squeezed, holding, wanting, not wanting, right? But it's so pervasive that it doesn't stand out until we start practicing and we cultivate this sort of stable, balanced, present moment awareness, and we uncover more continuous and more profound states of calm and peace. Then that contrast really helps us see that, oh, my normal operating pattern is tightness, is bound upness, is holding. Oh, good to know. Otherwise, we spend our whole life not realizing that that's the sort of MO of my life, to be tight, to be bound, to be entangled, to be wanting, to be not wanting this, not wanting that. You know, the Four Noble Truths is, in the tradition, is thought of almost like a medical diagnosis. You know, sometimes in the later years, the Buddha was seen as kind of the spiritual doctor. And he diagnoses sort of our predicament as a human being, this sort of uneasiness, insecurity of the heart, the sort of existential uneasiness or anxiety or unsettledness or longing. But some, when we're not distracted by what's front and center and we are more settled, we'll notice that background of restlessness and uneasiness. And so the Buddha is diagnosing, there is this illness, right? There is this uneasiness, this absence of ease, this absence of peace, this absence of fearlessness, this absence of unification even, right? We feel alienated and apart. There is this ouch. So that's the doctor's first, there is this illness. There's a cause here, right? That's part of the job of the doctor, like, how did this come to be? How did this ouch, this spiritual, existential uneasiness come to be? Oh, there is a cause. The squeeze of our heart arises conditionally or lawfully. It's not like absolutely destined to be this way. But when these supporting causes are there, that self-view gets identified with desire. So a desire with attachment is one way to think about the cause for the squeeze that we feel. When there is this attachment to desire, this misunderstanding of desire, it's not desire itself that's the problem. It's taking desire to be more than what it is. Desire is sort of synonymous with life, with having a mind and body. There's going to be desire for warmth when we're cold, or coolness when we're hot, and food when we're hungry, and connection when we're lonely, and shelter when we feel threatened. And these are just very natural desires for any organism, any creature. And we're certainly creatures, right? So we have these desires, and we want to relate wisely, but instead we imagine the desire is more than what it is. And because I want to eat, or I want to get away from this threat, or I want people to like me and include me, then the squeeze comes in. So when there's I, me, and mine, when we take desire personally, then because I want this, or I want to get rid of that, then there's got to be a squeeze because I want to get rid of that, or I want to get this, I want to become that. I'm ready to be done with that. And that identification, that attachment, or that what we call clinging or grasping, well, of course, that is the squeeze. So the doctor, the Buddha, who came to understand his own mind and then was also had the skill to articulate his own understanding in a way that helped other people get to know their own experience in a profound way. Right? That's what makes a Buddha, not just the deep understanding or the deep insight, but also this capacity to articulate their insight in a way that makes them a teacher, so that other people then can have that same insight, that same understanding that dawned in the Buddha's heart and mind. Oh, there is dukkha, this uneasiness of the heart. Oh, there is a cause. This cause is attachment to desire. Oh, there is a release, right? When the heart isn't attached, isn't identified, then one experiences the release, the heart free of grasping. This is a moment of freedom, of awakening, of enlightenment, a taste of it at least, depending on the amount of clarity, the depth and breadth of clarity, when there is that moment of realizing, oh, this heart is free of grasping, non-attachment, and not attached to the non-attachment, right? Just non-attachment without remainder. Just non-attachment, just letting go, just letting be. Right? And there's some, depending again on the depth and breadth of that understanding, how clear the mind is in that moment, how present and clear the mind is in that moment, and how continuous that awareness is in that moment, or those moments, then that insight has some real impact. And one of the impacts is the clarification of what's called the fourth noble truth, the path. And the Buddha didn't discover this path, or he articulated the path. I mean, the path isn't the Buddhist path, so to speak. That's why, in a way, Buddhism, even the term Buddhism, is sort of not really the appropriate word. It's better to call it dharma, which just refers to the way it is, because that's actually, what the Buddha taught. He didn't teach Buddhism, he taught the way it is. Dharma. And that dharma can be described in this simple way, like I read, suffering and the end of suffering, or only suffering arising and suffering ceasing. And then a little bit more sophisticated articulation is the Four Noble Truths. Oh, there is dukkha. And he talks about it as almost like a curriculum, like 12 aspects of our experience to awaken to. So 3 for each of the Four Noble Truths. Sorry for those of you who don't like lists. But this I find really useful. It's a simple list. So for the first Noble Truth, that there is dukkha, right? The first part, the first insight is just that a moment of a more honest recognition. You know what? Just to be honest with myself, there is this uneasiness, And I notice this uneasiness even when I'm doing pretty well in life, because I want that to last. Or I'm afraid it's going to be taken away. And so it's like, oh, there's this ongoing, pervasive restlessness, uneasiness, absence of being settled and peaceful. Okay, this is a teacher. And that's the second insight. Like the first is just that honest acknowledgement. So this is just in the realm of our own practice. This should be familiar to most of us. These moments in our life where we had a little moment of deeper self-honesty. Oh, you know what? No matter how much I decorate my life and distract myself and, I just have to be honest. There is this background of uneasiness and I don't quite understand it. And then the deepening of that insight then becomes this stress, this uneasiness, this wormy unsettledness that I catch from time to time. This is an important teacher. It should be understood. I need to get to know this, not out of aversion or fear, but somehow intuition says it's relevant, that the not knowing it is a problem. And the Buddha says this explicitly, that it's the not deeply understanding suffering that is the cause for suffering. It's the not having an honest and clear and deep understanding of dukkha, this uneasiness, that is the cause for it. So the resolution of dukkha isn't like needing a different life or needing a different set of circumstances. It's needing to remove the ignorance, the sort of pervasive sense that there's nothing here for me to see and learn. Oh, I get it. I know human life is miserable. I'm just going to do the best I can, and I don't really want to I don't want to scratch the surface because, I'm depending on skimming the surface for my strategy in life. I don't want to look too deeply. I don't want to look behind the curtain. I don't really want to know the way it is, because I might have to change my life and that will be difficult. Do you know that feeling? This is called ordinary human existence, and in a Buddhist sense, we call that ignorance. Like the not wanting to know is not a bad definition of what we call the word in Buddhism that gets translated as delusion or ignorance. It's the not wanting to know or thinking that we already know, so I don't need to be interested in a deeper sense. So the first three insights are, there is dukkha, there is this wormy uneasiness. It's a teacher. I really want to get to know it. Doesn't mean it will be pleasant to get to know it, but there's some intuition that getting to know it is onward leading to the deepest healing and release and peace. And that problems arise in the not knowing about it. And then the third insight in this first kind of part of the curriculum is, I'm getting to know dukkha, I'm no longer afraid of relaxing with it. I'm actually authentically curious. As one Zen teacher says, learning how to be in the downtown of dukkha. Not in a strategic okay, I'm gonna feel you, I'm gonna open to you, but because you're gonna go away. No. We're opening because it's here and now, and because we really value this honest, curious opening to the truth of our lives. For example, when a good friend is sick, or even, in the dying process, or a relative, a parent or something, we do, of course, what we can do to support them. But part of what we're doing is also noticing the uneasiness, because those sort of challenging situations, even though that might not be happening to us, just the proximity reminds us of our own insecurity and vulnerability, doesn't it? And we take advantage of it. Oh, okay. This is humbling, right? Because it strips away a lot of superficiality when we go visit someone in the hospital and we see the vulnerability of our lives, or we're with somebody who's getting divorced and, their whole life is changing, and they don't know what's next. And we empathetically feel the truth of vulnerability and uncertainty and how unreliable life is. We don't even, certainly when it happens to us, but even when we see something just in the news, so it's not even like a friend, we can use that. Or we see a squirrel that's been hit by a car on the side of the road. Oh yeah, things are uncertain. And it just brings us right to our teacher. Oh yeah, there's dukkha. There is this unreliable, ungovernable, insecure, and uncertain aspect of life. And you are my teacher. I am learning how not to be afraid. I'm learning how to get comfortable. Because I have this intuition there's something to learn here. And when we do those first three insights, there is dukkha, it should be understood, it has been understood, then it opens up to the second part of the curriculum, what we call the second noble truth. But remember, it isn't something to believe in, it's just a map of what happens naturally when we get interested in our present moment experience. So try to recognize what's already happening in your life as I talk about this map, as opposed to think, oh, this is something I have to do. No, this is something already happening in your life. But this way of understanding it might help you really distill the lessons that have already been, at least beginning to be learned. So the second three insights in the second noble truth, there is a cause. This cause, right, should be, the cause of dukkha should be abandoned. The cause of dukkha has been abandoned. Now, this is very easily misunderstood, like, okay, I'm going to figure out why my heart's uneasy, and I'm going to go get in there, and I'm going to let go of that cause, and then I'm going to experience, the cause is gone, so there's no more of that wormy, uneasy feeling. Done. But that's not how it happens. When we're in this, it's really this, we really get clear that what's transforming in a spiritual sense is the deepening of understanding. Not you getting into your life and fixing something. It's just at this point in spiritual life, it's just too gross of a move. It won't work. You can't solve this problem through some sort of self-centered volitional effort. It won't work. So, but what we can do is we can start to recognize this cause, and I've mentioned this already. There is a cause, and that's that one moment, any moment in your life where you see you're feeling the sense of being bound up, dukkha, right? Tight, restless, uneasy, afraid, wanting, and you feel the tension of that, the squeeze of it, and you recognize it. It's almost like the correlation. Oh, when there's this, there's that. When there's that identification with desire, then there's this squeeze in the heart, this uneasiness in the heart. That identification, that attachment should be abandoned. Like, when there's this, there's that. So then that matures into that insight. Oh yeah, without that attachment, there's not that squeeze. Without that identification, without that taking wanting personally or taking not wanting personally, there isn't that squeeze. But here, the really important point is, you and I, we don't let go of the squeeze. We don't let go of the attachment. We see the attachment, we see that it's extra, we see that it's the cause for the squeeze. That's where patient endurance comes in. Where we're really seeing the mind doing its habit, because it's its habit, like we're taking something personally, someone insulted us at work or didn't treat us the way we wanted to be treated, and it really hurts, and we're identified with that hurt, and we either, like, because we're identified, we're blaming that person, or we're blaming ourselves for not being good enough, but one way or another we're amplifying or reinforcing the hurt, the burden, the squeeze. And then enough wisdom arises and wisdom clarifies, oh yeah, all of this feels very personal. And because I'm taking it, relating to it in this personal way, then the squeeze is there in a way that seems personal, that really hurts in that personal way. When there's this identification, the squeeze happens. And there's enough stability and that allows for curiosity, like, wow. Because it's, even though it hurts, it's really good to see, oh yeah, when this habit arises to take it personally, and that's how the mind is framing it, then there's this personal weight, this personal ouch. This is good to see. And we practice and we eventually learn how to hang out there. And that's where the patient endurance, the Buddha says, I think I mentioned this maybe even last week, patient endurance is the supreme incinerator of these defilements, these torments of our heart, these places of clinging. It's the seeing that this should be abandoned, that this attachment is extra, that this identification isn't helping anybody. We just keep seeing that, we keep seeing that, we keep seeing that. And when we see it without aversion and without greed and without delusion, then the letting go happens. Not because you or I let go, but because the clinging, the squeeze depends on not seeing clearly. So when we patiently endure, until the clarity really matures, then you'll see that letting go happens. And that's the realization of the next 3 parts of the curriculum. There is a cause. The cause should be abandoned. The cause has been abandoned. And remember that the most important part of this process is that it's impersonal. It's a natural process of recognizing there is a cause, recognizing, right, it's an insight, this should be abandoned, recognizing, having the insight, it has been abandoned. Not you doing these 3 things, but wisdom recognizing this natural process of seeing the cause, seeing that this is unnecessary, it should be abandoned, seeing that it has been abandoned. And that whole process requires patience, right? And then I'll just do the last parts, so the third noble truth is then when the heart sees the cause, patiently endures, oh yeah, this is not helping. Me being attached, me clinging in this way, me taking this thing in my life personally, it's not helping me, it's not helping anybody. It's just an unnecessary and unwise way of relating that's here naturally because of the momentum of habit. So that's what wisdom sees, and that's where the patient endurance is. And then there's a natural letting go eventually when the clarity matures. And then that sets up the next 3 parts of the curriculum. Oh, there is a release. Oh my God. There's a moment of realizing, oh, what was a problem is no longer a problem. That's amazing. Whatever this is, this experience of release, this is relevant. This should be fully understood, fully realized. Or another way to think of this second piece here is, this should be generalized to every moment of my life. Whatever I'm coming to understand here about non-clinging, non-grasping, non-attachment, whatever the heart is beginning to discern is the real experience of peace, the peace of non-greed, non-aversion, non-delusion. This should be fully developed, fully realized. It has been fully realized. So it's really maturing of the insight of cessation. Now that's a funny word, but the Buddha uses that a lot, and it's actually related to the word nirvana or nibbana that I'm sure everyone's heard, which is not so greatly translated as enlightenment or even awakening, which is slightly better, or liberation. But it's really the weight of self-centeredness, the weight of self-centered clinging, ceasing. So nibbana, the word was an ordinary word around the time of the Buddha that meant a fire going out. The agitated activity of something burning, the mind burning with attachment, that ceases. It goes out. And when we have that continuity of interest and awareness, present moment awareness, and we see, oh, there's a cause, it should be abandoned, it has been abandoned, and then the experience of the mind free of grasping, the fires of grasping have gone out, momentarily at least, and then there's the next insight, this is what the heart's been seeking. I didn't even realize it, of course, but now I know this is what my mind, my heart, more than anything else, has been interested in. This feeling, this experience of release. The fire going out. The fires of greed, hatred, and delusion have gone out for a moment. This should be fully developed. This has been fully experienced, fully realized. And that deepening of that third insight, or the third noble truth, there is an end to suffering, then sets up the path, which is the fourth noble truth. There is a path. And the development of that path, like, well, what do I do now? Now that I've tasted some real freedom that is out of the box, not the freedom of having a nice massage, or the freedom of having a nice hug from a good friend, or the freedom of getting a good night's sleep. I mean, there's a lot of nice experiences in life, but they don't profoundly change our lives going forward. It's just a pleasant experience that arises, lasts for a while, and then ceases. But this third insight that I talked about, that there is a release from grasping, changes the heart's orientation. And that starts to bring online, like, oh, what to do with my life. And this is where the Eightfold Path comes in, that the Buddha articulated. But it's basically like, as we do whatever we have to do in life, what it really becomes about is the Eightfold Path, which is bringing awareness to this, all aspects of our life, this wisdom awareness. Because it's that interest in that stability of present moment awareness that allows us to recognize any dukkha that's there, that it has a cause, that the cause should be released, that the cause has been released, and reasserting this insight of, oh, there is an end to suffering. There is this heart free of grasping. And so the first part of the Eightfold Path is just like, let's bring that stability of wisdom and awareness to our relational lives. And that's what's called sila, or ethical conduct. And this deep valuing, starting with our own self-compassion, like having tasted some degree of freedom, like, I do not want to add, I do not want to set in motion any more squeeze, any more burden of my heart or anybody's heart, right? So it just naturally activates this powerful moral integrity around non-harming for ourselves and others. And this profound sensitivity, like vigilance, like I'm going to really be observant. Not because I'm tight about like being bad, but because I sense the possibility of living in a way with so much integrity that really supports this taste of freedom that I had. And then we bring it to how we relate to the activity of our own mind. Like the garden of our own heart and mind. Like, oh, there's a way that this heart and mind can be free of... So not just our relational world, like how we get along with each other, but even within, the conversation that's going on within our own heart and mind can be free of squeeze, free of tension, free of conflict, free of tightness. Very harmonious. Just like our external world of relationships can be really beautiful and harmonious, free of greed and hatred. Same with the inner activity, the inner narration, and just the sort of psychological, emotional activity. So we bring that wisdom and awareness to that level, that frequency of our lives. And then the third part of the Eightfold Path is just bringing that to the most subtle part, which is the underlying way of understanding. Like recognizing, like with enough stability of present moment awareness, recognizing, oh yeah, there is a way the mind is relating, viewing, understanding. This should be understood. Is the mind relating in a self-centered way, or in a way that's free of self-centeredness? Taking things personally, or seeing things as natural processes? Internally is a natural process, external things are natural processes, all of it happening lawfully, conditionally, right? And the kind of intentions that flow out of that are the intentions to not be greedy, but to be generous and to let go. And not the intention to be full of ill will, but the intention to be kind. And not the intention to justify harming, cruelty, but to really want to take care of, and to be tender, and to be compassionate. And that just naturally flows when we bring awareness to these three frequencies, like the outer, grosser, the relational world, the qualities of our mind, and the most subtle quality of understanding or view, the way the mind frames things. This is from Thich Nhat Hanh. I don't know if most people probably know Thich Nhat Hanh, who died a few years back now, but a very influential Vietnamese Buddhist monk who got kicked out as a peace activist, as a young monk back in the late 60s. He went to the Paris peace talks. You might remember those beginning talks between the warring parties, the US and the North and South Vietnamese, that took place in Paris for a couple of years. And then they wouldn't let him back into Vietnam. And so good fortune to those of us in the West, because Thich Nhat Hanh taught for many decades rather in the West, both the United States and France and other places. But he wrote, "Life is both dreadful and wonderful. To practice meditation is to be in touch with both aspects. Smiling means that we are ourselves, that we have sovereignty over ourselves, that we are not drowned in forgetfulness. How can I smile when I'm filled with so much sorrow? It is natural. If you need to smile, it's natural. You need to smile to your sorrow because you are more than your sorrow." And it's just his poetic way of talking about cultivating this deep and wise relationship with dukkha, with the uneasy aspects of our life, the heavy aspects of our life, is liberating. As the Buddha said, that I said before, it's the not knowing of dukkha that is the cause for dukkha. So I'll leave it here. So we have 10 to 15 minutes to have a conversation with each other. I'm sure most of you know it's so valuable hearing people share from their practice, their learnings, questions that are emerging. It's always good to share your first name. You could share where you're calling from. And also if you want to share your pronouns. Yeah, anybody feel like beginning? Reflections on the talk tonight or other things that come to mind? Feel free to just unmute yourselves, or if you want, you can raise your digital hand. Yeah, please go.
My name's Irene, and I'm currently living in California. I just want to comment about how sticky, and I think it refers back to the quote from the Buddha about persistent patience being the supreme incinerator. Because sometimes I will have an experience, and while I can see, I have sometimes enough awareness to know it's not personal. Like my mind just keeps picking it up. I'll be like, I'll have the awareness, and within seconds, minutes, there it is again. And I'm just like, and so just really, that part sometimes seems really exhausting.
Yeah.
And yeah. And sometimes it can be a shorter process, but still, sometimes, even though I've been practicing for over a decade, I mean, it can sometimes be still days. And then it will even surprise me. For instance, I was on a family vacation in February of this year, and then I was met up with my family again for graduation in May, and there was an incident in February that I felt like I resolved, but then we were all together again, and there it was, and all of those feelings were back, and it's really, yeah.
It's a realization, what you described, Irene, because that last thing you said, that it came back, it really proves how impersonal it is. Because you probably are correct that previously wisdom did see there was, that there was dukkha, that there was a cause, that the cause should be abandoned, that the cause then was abandoned, and that there was that release, right? Probably saw that, but that doesn't mean it uprooted the habit to go back there, right? Because it has momentum, those habits. Think about how some of these habits have been wound up for so many years, so many moments we've kind of fed that habit, identified with it, right? So it's going to keep playing itself out until the mind has a very deep understanding, like it basically uproots that tendency. Now, there will be other tendencies that need to be uprooted. But we have to be patient, and we have to take advantage of the insight. So when it repeats, like, be interested. Wow, that's interesting. Like, like really own your experience. Like, I really saw the emptiness of this. And here it is again. Okay. Am I willing to do the one thing that has proven to be helpful, which is to recognize in that honest way, oh yeah, this hurts. Let me just be honest about it. This hurts. This is tight. This is heavy, or whatever your experience is. Like, just start there with the dukkha. There is dukkha. Let me be honest about that. I'm not going to run from that. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. This hurts. I wish it were otherwise, but it is like this right now. Is this just happening to me because I'm bad, or is there something happening now that is supporting, that's feeding this? What is the mind doing? What is the cause, supporting cause? That if that weren't there, then this wouldn't be there. And you may, if it's too intense, you won't be able to do this discernment. And you might actually have to turn away from it, like, if I open to this, I just get triggered in a way that's not helpful. So what can I pay attention to in my experience, with some balance, some interest? Because it might not be this. But if you can be with this, then get interested, like, how is this coming to be, this tightness, this squeeze, this heaviness, this difficulty? Oh, because there's a basic premise that really helps us get interested. Like the Buddha says, our teacher says, if there's suffering, then there's attachment. So we can get interested, like, is there attachment? We don't want to believe that, we want to check it out. Is that true? And whether you use the word attachment or identification or taking something personally, but there's always something that's causing that personal experience of suffering. And when that attachment or identification or taking it personally isn't there, then the suffering isn't what it is, because suffering depends on that. So then we see, there is suffering and there's attachment, right? There's attachment to desire, or the desire to get, or the desire to get rid of, right? There's that attachment and the desire, and that leads to suffering. And that's where the patience come. But only when we actually have patience. Patience isn't the same as being averse and really wanting it to go away. That's aversion. That's feeding it. I know it breaks our heart because we do that so much. Because a lot of the times when we're suffering, we're feeding the suffering because we really just want it to go away. And that's not helpful. That's actually contributing to it. So it's better when that's all we're capable of doing, the better thing to do is say, well, what else can I be aware of right now, because I'm not doing myself any good by hating this thing or wanting it to go away. So we change the channel, so to speak. Well, I'll just take a walk, or I'll be aware of hearing, or I'll be aware of my body but not where it hurts, or I'll do some loving kindness practice in a way to sort of bring in a more wholesome attitude. Yeah, any other thoughts about that, Irene?
Well, as you were talking, and I was thinking back to the instance, it was really, and I think that, like, this attachment to how I want to be seen, right? And so when it's not that way, right? Then it hurts.
Yeah. And of course, on one level, it's totally understandable that we want to be seen certain ways. and that it hurts when we're not. But from a deeper point of view, am I in control of how people see us? No. So if we're staking happiness and peace on people seeing us a particular way or relating to us a particular way, it's a setup, isn't it? And the thing is, it sort of works until it doesn't. And then we feel so betrayed and vulnerable. And I bet everybody in this group, I certainly relate to times of real pain because of this. And the key is, if we believe these teachings might be useful, and we should check out like, oh, I'm attached to being seen a certain way, and not being seen that way really hurts. Oh, this is relevant. I need to keep this in mind, that when I'm really attached to being seen as this kind of person, and somebody sees me another way, it really hurts. Yeah, when there's this attachment to one, and then this really, you just kind of hang in there, and eventually the heart realizes this way, like, well, maybe I don't need to be attached to how people see me. Maybe that's just a more skillful way to live my life. Of course, I prefer people to see me this way, but I know I'm not in control. It's unreliable, it's uncertain. And sometimes people see us certain ways because of the way they're conditioned. It has nothing to do with me. And sometimes they actually see something in me, that I wish they didn't, but they do. But that's how it is, isn't it? We are so vulnerable as human beings. This ungovernable, unreliable, this isn't a problem. This is just how it is. Thanks for getting us started, Irene. We have time for one more comment or question if somebody would like to share with the group. Any other learnings that come to mind? Think about, just to bring some humor, but I think it's more than just humor. But like when you're suffering, you really feel like life is a burden, or this situation is a burden. It's causing some stress, some discomfort. Just imagine almost like getting down on your knees and bowing down, like, oh, my teacher has showed up. And this, you may not be the teacher I want, but in a very deep way, this is interesting to me, like that this really hurts. And I have at least a sliver of faith, for my practice and for my teachers, a sliver of faith that it maybe doesn't need to be this way. I'm getting sick with COVID, or I'm got a medical crisis, or my job's insecure, or my relationship isn't really feeling like I want it to feel, and then there's that deep kind of, something I was counting on I can't count on, and then, honey, you are a teacher, because you're revealing that the heart was dependent on something that's not dependable. Nothing in the world of experience is actually dependable. It's actually, weirdly, a downside of having a lot of privilege in life or good fortune in life, is that we don't learn this lesson often enough. And then people at the other end of the spectrum who have really difficult conditions or circumstances, or being oppressed or taken advantage of, or just have a lot of illness or a lot of insecurity in their lives, they also have a hard go of it, because they don't, it's like the difficulty is so overwhelming, it's not easy to be interested and learn from it. So a fortunate existence is where we have enough insults, but not too much. Enough insults that we have teachers to learn from, but not so many that we're constantly overwhelmed and in a defensive stance, and just all we can imagine is some temporary relief that ends up setting more suffering in motion. where we drink too much or we distract ourselves too much because we just need some relief wherever we can get it because we're really hurting. So may we have that kind of place where enough of our teachers to learn the deep and difficult lessons that lead to real freedom, but not too many, so that we feel overwhelmed and we just want to check out whenever we can, wherever we can. I appreciate people showing up tonight. I'm going to be teaching in Washington State at Cloud Mountain this next weekend. So Jean Haley will be here teaching on Tuesday night for me. Jean's a wonderful teacher, a longtime teacher at Common Ground. Most of you know that the center operates on this wonderful circle of giving and receiving. Please receive the Tuesday night programs as a free gift from the Common Ground community. They make this all possible. They support my livelihood and the paid staff at Common Ground. And the job of us, who show up on Tuesday night is to receive it as a free gift. And then if you're inspired to be part of that circle of giving and receiving, then just contribute in ways that make you happy. Whether you're giving money so we can pay for the technology and the paid staff at Common Ground and support the teachers, or you just support us by your good wishes, or you get involved and volunteer. And remember, you can volunteer remotely. Gabe Keller-Flores, our operations manager, is always looking for people to help out, for example, with the audio stuff and helping get the talks up on the YouTube channel and dharmacy.org, where we keep our audio talks, and many other ways to just support the center. And especially just by doing your practice and becoming wise and kind human beings. And the circle keeps going that way. So thanks, everyone. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to say good night to everyone.
Good night, everybody.